Back again for another Sunday to go over some of the shit show that's taking place across the United Kingdom, this wonderful United Kingdom. Some juicy LGBT emphasis on the T nonsense to sort of go over. Some BAME material, of course, standard practice. And I might even slide in a couple of cheeky S&P things here and there. But just standard practice for a Sunday night, filling in for Scott's Armour till he returns to the scene, so to speak. But just before I introduce who I've got on me tonight, a few people in the chat already. Free helicopter rides. I think you must be a new face, unless you've changed your name, but it's nice to see you, Goody. We've got the Saxon, of course. There's no show without Punchy. Al Mac, I think you're from the Scrubs chatter, you know. Nice to see you, Goody. Everybody's favourite Budgie Bugger, of course. How's it going? And a fellow Scotsman, Angus Sheepshagger. Rory Herbert. Nice to see you, my friend. And aye. That's it. Oh wait, no. My ignorance. We've got Illuminatus. Nice to see you. Got Toffee like. And we've also got the Woodlander. How's it going, my friend? Right. And I need to stop being ignorant and introduce the two people that are on the panel with me tonight. So we've got everybody's favourite Saxon, Sanson, and we've got Bonnie Lad. First time I think he's appeared on my channel, but he's been on streams with me and Scott's Armour before and vice versa. So, on that note, how's it going, guys?
Yeah, fine, thanks. And again, thanks for asking us on. Everything's fine. So we did the stream last night, which was good, and obviously did the stream on Friday. And previous to that, we did the stream with yourself. Everything's fine. So again, thanks for asking us on. Doing well.
It's good, nah. No worries at all. Always a pleasure. And yourself, Sanson? How are you doing, Mr. Saxon?
I'm all right, mate. And I've just realised I'm going to have to update that video because 3 of the buggers that are in those slides are no longer a persona non grata now, aren't they? I mean, let's face it. I did make it a good 2 weeks ago, so.
Yeah, no, but you were on the money that week. The first week that we did it, you said you did think that she would be an officer a week, within the week. You were bang on, more or less. You know, you should have put money on that.
She didn't beat the lettuce either.
I don't know what that was about at first, but I will ask you then, before I jump into the first thing, like, I know you just spoke about it a bit on Friday, like, but who do you think is going to be the next PM, or do you think it's going to be a general election or something?
I don't know. I'm torn, but I'll just say, for ruthless reasons, I hope it's not Boris. And the reason why I say that is because Boris is the only voted in legitimate leader, if you like. And he potentially, because he's got the gift of the gab, because he's a smarmy bastard, you know, he's he's not an idiot, but he's not clever in right play. He's clever for his own means, shall we say. But he could, because of his blimmin' bluster and because of his appeal to the sort of Spitfire nationalists, etc., then he's the only one who could potentially, you know, turn around the Tories enough whereby even if they lose, it wouldn't be a complete and utter decimation. If Dishy Rishi gets in, so Dishy Rishi and Penny is the sort of, you know, the twosome that the globalists want to install, then that government literally has no legitimacy, and all you will get continue, because Boris will just spot it his face, says, I am the legitimate leader. I was voted in. I was given this mandate. I'm going to do these things. So any calls for a general election right off the table, so you can stop now, piss off. And he's the only person out of that array of people, you know, who can actually legitimately say that. So you get a Rishi Dishy installed. Penny Mordaunt's just a wild card, but she will end up in a high ministerial position, you know, one of the top 4 jobs. There's no doubt there. If Dishy Rishi gets in, she'll be in there. Yeah. Now, if that happens, then the likes of Wee Nippy and Dame Keir and all of the remaining, you know, so the Drakeford and Blackford, Wee Nippy, all them lot, and Dame Kia, they'll be incessant on demanding an election, and they'll also leverage their propaganda wings in the press to just continually put pressure on and pressure on. The government will be, a lame duck government, whoever, well, with the exception of Boris, whoever, if anybody else gets in, it'll be a lame duck government, because no other issue will be being discussed or debated or trying to be done, because the press won't allow it to happen, and all the other parties won't allow it to happen. They'll just continually push the general election. And I'll tell you now, and I say this in all candor, because we had the last election was in December, if anybody, because they're going to elect somebody next week, if anybody other than Boris gets in, I can see us having an election before Christmas. And good, because that hopefully will absolutely decimate that cancerous bloody blancmange that is the Tory party. We're going to have 4 or 5 years of absolute hell under Labour. But the bonus of that is that hopefully out of the Tories' ashes, a proper phoenix with our interests at heart will rise from those ashes and hopefully take the mantle, give us at least some respite from this never-ending bullshittery. That's just my opinion, and I think that the people of this country, there's a massive appetite for that. So, like I say, they either install their globalist puppets, Rishi and Penny, which then will have to force a general election, which then means an absolutely massive majority for Labour and the Tory party ends, or Boris gets in, literally swats away any questions of elections, because he feels like it's a bit like Charles I, and he keep on saying to Cromwell, you have no authority over me. I was actually elected to this position, and they might survive. I'm not going to say they're not going to take a few on the chin. I'm not going to say they're not going to win the next election, but he'll salvage enough of that godforsaken party to at least make it an opposition going forwards, which I just don't want. We've had several chances to destroy those Tories, and every single time they've been saved, they've come back and shit on the people that allowed them to be saved. I want them fucking destroyed. Sorry, mate, but that's just my opinion.
Amen. What about yourself, Bonnie? Have you had any thoughts on what you think might happen?
Yeah, well, when I made a little video on, I think when it was announced that Liz Truss was leaving, she'd handed resignation, and I'll stick with what I said then. I think Sunak, I think he'll become the next Prime Minister. Just got this gut feeling. I know the popular vote and the membership of the Conservatives want Boris Johnson, and he's more popular than Sunak. But I was again, it's just my this inclination towards Sunak to become the next Prime Minister. Like I said, I saw it today, the clamouring for a general election. Obviously, Labour want one because it's probably the best chance they'll have to win an election, maybe. I don't know because see how it pans out next year. But it doesn't look too good for the Conservatives either way. I really can't see them winning the next election. And again, things happen, things change in politics, and next year might be a different kettle of fish. But when we spoke about this on Friday, and I think a lot of people have spoken to outside of social media are sort of shocked how quickly it's happened. At least Truss, and 44 days later, possibly, like Sentiment alluded to there, we could have a general election. There is talk about that. Well, like I said, for me, what I said again on Friday is that with Keir Starmer, all he's got to do with the Labour Party, it's a bit difficult because one of the guys has handed the notice in ante, so to speak. So they've got to just keep a tight ship, the Labour Party, in my opinion. Then I think they will win the next general election. And again, I still think that Sunak will become the next Prime Minister. That's how I feel. I can't add anything to that.
I don't know. You might be right about that. I'm more nervous about an election, really, because even the SNP are demanding one now. And I've just got this horrible feeling that if that happens, the Tories are done for, as Woodlander alluded to earlier in the chat. Labour might get in with the SNP, and then that will probably spark a referendum, and then you might as well just drop Hiroshima 2.0 on Scotland, because that is the end of this country. And I'm not being over dramatic. That's how bad it is, because they will win that referendum and then we are fucked. Pardon my French. But I don't want to be too much of a Debbie Downer. Let's go to something I got sent today. First of all, I don't know if you have seen this, but I'll mute my mic to share the audio. But this pissed me off. This is down in England. We've already been dealing with this nonsense here for some time. So I'll share my screen and play the video. It's about 2 minutes long or so. It's from the BBC.
My name is Lavinia Stennett. I'm 23 years old and I'm the founder and director of the Black Curriculum. It's an initiative that works to teach Black British history all year round, so not only in October, in order to improve a sense of identity, attainment, and also belonging in young people around the UK.
Remember,
at the moment, the Eurocentric curriculum really doesn't centre Black British histories at all, and we're not getting a full picture of British history, which is actually disempowering a lot of young people who don't know about their history.
when waves of Jamaicans started coming to the UK, they brought sound system culture with them.
Even in the word outside to like history, there's slavery, racism. There's also been like accomplishments, like stuff that has happened good, like achievements that people have made from like the times where everything was bad. So that should be noticed and people should acknowledge that.
I think the history is important because it's not just Black people's history, it's British history.
This should be available to all young people all year round, regardless of your background, because Black history is for everybody.
Sound class, reggae, speakers from street corners.
It'd make a big difference, especially in like the wider scope of things, because you'd understand more things and you'd get to see how different communities and cultures like interact and why it is they might interact that way and the struggles they might have gone through.
I think it benefits societies and communities in the UK by education, of course. If you know more about something, you're less likely to be prejudiced towards it.
Focusing on the dehumanizing aspects of Black British history, for example, like slavery, it reproduces the negativity and a lack of belonging. Saying that slavery is not good to learn, I think it's important that we do learn it, but in a contextual manner, in context of the British Empire, for example, and understanding the nuances that are involved in that.
So, there's quite a lot to unpack there, but the one thing that stood out to me instantaneously within the first 30 seconds of that wee clip there was when she said that something to the tune of Eurocentric education doesn't focus on Black people. Oh dear. It really annoys me when they come away with not rhetoric like that, because these are the sort of things that should just go without saying. This is the United Kingdom. It's England. This case, it's England. It's a white country. Why would they not prioritise or have a quote Eurocentric educational system? But this is what they always do. They pick apart things that should go without saying, and because nobody's ever really given it much thought, it then gives them the excuse or the justification to provide a reason for why this is the case. So you would think to yourself, it goes without saying, and you never give it any thought, but then they come and they supply an answer for you, and this is supposed to just be acceptable. But the second thing on top of that, towards the end, she made reference to slavery, but in the context. She's trying to be a smart arse, talking about the contextualized British Empire. Oh, we really go down that route, though. As has been mentioned so many times by myself, by others, and that it's very selective in nature what they wish to teach children. They're doing the same in Scotland. They don't sit and talk about, Ottoman Empire or Barbary slave trade, who owned the slave ships, none of that stuff, who sold their people into slavery, modern day slavery, Egyptian slavery, none of that stuff. Oh, no. We need to talk about the white man and how they just rocked up on the shores of Africa and scooped up all the little George Floyds that were running about playing football and just threw them in the back of the boat and then took them to America. That's what they want you to believe. It just does my nutted, the selective history. But yeah, so England's now starting to get the same treatment that Scotland's been getting for some time. You know, we are the guinea pig, that goes without saying. But now it seems that the cancer that is Black history, because as I said, it's selective and whatnot, and it's done to browbeat, you're going to be getting it too now. So I don't know. Well, what's your thoughts on that, boys?
Yeah, I actually posted that video, and the woman and the group, what that lady represents, the Black Syllabus group and all what they try to do, it's been on for quite some years, that particular group. So it might seem shocking to some people, but this sort of form of indoctrination has been going on for quite some years in a lot of English schools. And obviously, the wake of the Black History Month, it's got more traction, the BBC, etc. And it's not just England. If you've seen my Telegram page and even on my video, I did the one about Northern Ireland, where they've got another particular group what are pushing an agenda there as well. Obviously, you've got in Scotland and Wales. So I've said this years ago, and I'll say it again, it's only a matter of time before it's mandatory Black history is taught in schools. What they've actually said, that Black history can be taught in schools along with the fixed curriculum, as long as you don't overpass that. And what they're doing is in some schools, I know in London, they've done it last year or the year before, it might have been 2020, they were actually inviting school children to come in and to learn Black history, not in school time, if that makes sense. They offered a free syllabus for children to come in to do that. So for me personally, it's only a matter of time before it becomes mandatory that Black history is taught in schools. And again, I'll say it again, you'd be amazed to see how many schools are adopting their own policy when it comes to Black history. And it might seem a little bit out there or a bit weird to say this, but I follow a lot of schools, a lot of the sort of websites and some of the actual the Twitter feeds and some of the stuff they actually do. It's just unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. But they're not mandatory to do it, but they're taking themselves to do it. So this Black History Month, most of the schools, like primary age schools, children, they're getting sort of, you could call it indoctrination, brainwashed, etc., being taught about Black history all the time and how it's advancement, all the famous Black inventors, how they contributed to this country's history, and at the same time demonising his own history in the respect of the slave trade and stuff like that. And the article you mentioned there, the lady there who said it, she's an authoress, she's a Black authoress, and I think she's wrote several children's books. But she again alludes to this famous thing, this sort of mantra they always come out with. And I'll just quote what it said, what I put on my Telegram page. If you're talking about the history of Britain, then that history includes Black people and people of colour. My ancestors' history did not start with slavery. Black people have been in this country since Roman times, if not before. So, but this is the thing, what they've been pushing out in Black History Month, and they're constantly pushing it out. And like I said, a lot of school children believe it, that they've been here since Roman times or pre-Roman times. And blacks, again, some people have even said it, that because this Cheddar Man and these other so-called finds, that there's a school of thought to say that Black people were actually in this country before white people. And again, that's been adopted and it's being used. And you see the rhetoric being, 24/7 now. But like you said, what you've shown there, which was a good piece, but it's been going on literally for years. It's not just an isolated thing. Again, it gets more traction because it's Black History Month. But like I said, they're clamouring it. They're clamouring for. They've got Scotland. They've got obviously Wales. Now they want England, and then obviously Northern Ireland. And again, I think it'll happen next year. And whether it's under a Conservative government or a Labour government, I do believe that teaching Black history will become mandatory. And I think the whole history thing will just completely change. We won't learn necessarily about our achievements, our greatness, etc. And if we did, well, it won't be in that context. It'll be other people's achievements, and we achieved our greatness on the backs of other people. Sorry for going on there, but it's a good video you've shown there. And like you said, I think for a lot of normies, don't realise sort of the insidious agenda in some respects, but how long it's been going on. That's the thing. Like I said, I've spoken about this for some years, and like I said before, I started doing YouTube streams. I post a lot of articles and news stuff like yourself you do as well. So, yeah, that's it. You can go on about this particular subject. It gets quite annoying. Right, I'll leave it at that. All right, thank you.
No, fair enough. I mean, like, I'll just say before I let Sensum jump in there, like, obviously I just pay more attention to what's happening in Scotland. So, like, it wasn't even until I've said this before, with No Chance posted a video a few months ago, of what there was a Conservative MP in Westminster talking about some of the absolutely grotesque sex education resources that are like currently being taught in English schools. I had no idea about that. I thought this was just like a problem in Scotland and Wales, but so I don't pay as much attention as I probably should, in truth. But I mean, when I seen that today, I mean, I know that this sort of stuff happens, but I wasn't aware. Just even what you were saying there, I didn't realize the sheer scale of it down there. I mean, it's bad here. I think Wales is probably the worst. No, I'd say Scotland's the worst now because it's literal critical race theory that the Scottish government are working to implement in this country. But in Wales, they've already enshrined, am I correct in saying, this anti-racist education? That's just what they're calling it. Or sure it's that. That's what they've got now enshrined in law in Wales now. So that's bad. And I know anti-racism is just anti-white shit anyway, and it's critical race theory combined. But the Scottish government are the only ones that have like literally said that that's what they're planning to implement. It's on their website, as I've shown before, But it's just a matter of time. Starts off with Black history, and it grows arms and legs, as they say. What about yourself, Sensum? You got to say about this? You're muted if you're talking. What the fuck? He's away.
No, I was typing, mate. I was
Okay.
I was responding to the chat because obviously, you only bring me in here to entertain the chat. I know why I'm here. I'm not really wanted, but
Okay.
What I would say is, this is all making sense now. I don't know about anybody in the chat, but I think it was either last week or just a few days, certainly longer than Liz Truss was in power. But I got a notice through the door off the old postie telling me that your old stamps will be no good soon. Yeah, because they're bringing out new ones. And I see what the plan is now. It's clear that they intend to put the entirety of Black history on the back of the new ones, you see. Now, don't be cruel. They're using a 20-point font, so there you go. Now, the thing is, with the very, 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 very rare exception, which they like to promote as being the norm, the majority of those people who are here, either they or their forebears, arrived in 1948 or later. So, their history essentially begins at the year zero that they want, which is 1948. Well, they'd missed out on all the good stuff by then. Now, I know they talk about, actually, there was these people in World War One, and there was these people in World War Two. Oh, and there's this guy on the Titanic, and he went, yeah, fuck off. Yeah, these are the 0.000000001%. Yeah, you're using the exception to prove the rule that doesn't even exist. So what's the point? What is the point of all of this nonsense? Once again, it's literally there just to demonize the indigenous people and to fool them into believing that this landmass that we live on, is a free for all for everybody. Thousands of years of struggle and strife means fuck all. If you just rock up on the beaches of Kent, you're now as British as Queen Elizabeth. Yeah, you're as British as Rob Roy McGregor. You're as British as bloody Dylan Thomas. You know what I mean? As long as you put your foot on that sand, buff, you're gifted the entirety and our history in perpetuity. And then after you've gotten all of those goods, you can spend the rest of your life just belly aching and bitching about how shit your life is, even though you spent you spent all your time to get here. You know what I mean? Once again, it doesn't make any sense. And like I say, if you want to teach Black history, that's fine, but it started in 1948. So, what we're going to be covering? Brixton riots? 977? Manchester Arena, you know, that kind of history. Oh, no, we're not talking about that. We're talking about how they built Stonehenge. Ah, right, well, okay. I'll shut up then.
Stonehenge. Oh, I remember that fucking being covered. I think it was a Scots Armour was in a Steve U body. There was something about Stonehenge and black people. I'm sure I remember that. Fucking hell. But yeah, you're right as well. So, one of the other reasons they do it is not just a browbeating, but if they can sort of implant the idea, the concept in your head that they've always been here, then you have a much more difficult time being able to say, like, you shouldn't be here, you know. Oh, well, we've always been here. Like, that's why they do it. And as you made reference to, this is the browbeating. Because and I also made reference my initial ramble where I said like it's very selective. Like if they were being sincere in teaching about the ills of slavery, then they talk about slavery in its full context, but they don't, which is the irony of it all, because they always infer that it's not taught in the correct context as that Bame alluded to in the video. Yeah, like it just drives me nuts. How they get away with shit.
Just a quick one for you. Watching, sorry, there's a video I was watching. I think you might have seen it. It's on my Telegram channel. I don't know if there was another one I didn't post it. And you've probably seen the new edition, or not edition, the new show of James VI, or James IV, sorry. Then they're doing the one that quotes one of the people said, you know, black history in Scotland. Black people have been in Scotland for a long, long, long time. And it's quite funny. They've been in Scotland a lot longer than people realise, and probably yourself as well. So that's what the mantra is. And like I said, the thing about history, a lot of people find the subject boring. So they don't really want to challenge a lot of these conceptions. So they'll go along with the sort of the mantra, what they're saying. So a lot of young people now will buy into this, and they'll be arguing with people in years to come. Yeah, well, they have been here, they did this and they did that. And that's the frightening thing about it, because again, the way history is, it's it's a bit of a boring sort of subject for a lot of people. And I just think how they're sort of changing it, the narrative, and like I said, putting these. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and like I said, at Sentiment, they had a trumpeter in Henry VIII's court, one black trumpeter. Well, it doesn't really mean a lot, does it? Really, that. But then they'll have one person in a particular part of history where it's medieval history, and they'll say, well, yeah, we've always been here, sort of thing. So, yeah, but they say in Scotland as well as even I was reading today, Northern Ireland and Wales as well. So it's all for home countries.
Yeah, no, I doubt. I think the Northern Ireland one, I think if I remember rightly, I'd have to rewatch or relook at what you posted, but I do remember saying about that. It just goes to show that nowhere's safe. Nowhere at all. I just wanted to. This is the only thing really from the Scottish Parliament I want to show this week, but this is something that really pisses me off. And funnily enough, there's somebody in my chat called Grayson Nielsen. I don't know if that's a play on words, because the little ballhead that I'm about to play the video of is called Neil Gray, and he's from the SNP. And I don't know if he's gay or not, but he sure as hell sounds gay. Anyway, let's hear what he has to say, because Scottish people are expendable to these parasites.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what plans it has to support the rural economy in areas impacted by long-term population decline.
Minister Neil Gray.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. We're investing £8.3 million this year to deliver the National Islands Plan and developing an addressing depopulation action plan to provide the policy framework to support population retention across rural communities. We're also investing £11.6 million through our Rural Community-led Fund, developing a remote, rural and islands housing action plan, and investing in digital infrastructure, despite responsibility for broadband being reserved to the UK Government. Additionally, Parliament has recently endorsed a bespoke rural visa pilot scheme. The employer-based migration proposal has been developed with representatives from employers across islands and rural communities.
Karen Wilkin.
I thank the Minister for that answer. Can the Minister confirm that the £5 million for the abandoned islands bond is still ring-fenced for tackling depopulation, and advise if plans for utilising that resource will be set out in future financial plans?
Minister.
I thank Carol Mockin for that question. Obviously, we're working with our island communities to develop proposals around ensuring that we can address depopulation, and all financial issues at the moment are going through the lens of the
out a case charting this. Many of these, such as matters pertaining to immigration, are reserved. The Scottish Government has clearly set out a case charting a different course to the UK immigration policies. which, quite frankly, don't take into account Scotland's unique circumstances and are therefore harmful to our communities. Can I ask what the Cabinet Secretary thinks the basis is for opposition of the UK Government to initiatives which are essential to Scotland's well-being through supporting economic growth and the delivery of public services, as well as enhancing and sustaining our communities?
Sustaining.
A lack of understanding of Scotland's rural needs. Depopulation is a complex issue, and therefore there are no simple solutions. As such, it's essential that we work with regional, local and community partners to develop a sustainable approach to enhancing and sustaining our communities. We're proud in Scotland to have legislation such as the Islands Act, which ensures we take into account the unique nature of communities and develop solutions in a collaborative manner. Without such a close working relationship, I struggle to see how the UK Government can understand the needs of our communities and confess to knowing them what is best for them.
So, obviously, that video did go on for like almost 3 minutes, so I do apologise. But the other video as well, I uploaded two today, where he actually goes into a bit more detail about this pilot scheme that they've put forth to Westminster. As of yet, Westminster haven't suggested one way or the other if they're going to accept these proposals, but effectively what it is called the Rural Migration Pilot. They want to flood our islands with BAMEs, or just immigrants in general, and the excuse being depopulation. So the only way to cure depopulation is to import people. So I really get annoyed when you hear like people saying that the so-called Great Replacement is old bullshit, right? Okay, like they're talking week after week after week after week about needing immigration powers devolved to this country because of depopulation. So if that isn't replacement migration, I don't know what is. Like they're spelling it out for you, and it just infuriates me that this gets to be said week in, week out, and it's seen as a positive thing, and it's seen as outrageous that Westminster today have refused to accept these proposals, because at the end of the day, they're on about sustainability and sustaining our sustainable economy, all the usual rhetoric that you hear. But at the end of the day, the irony is they talk about thinking long term. Well, so am I. And you don't need to be a mathematician or specialize in demography to put two and two together here and realize that if they get their way and this continues, then the islands that they claim they're trying to help will be unrecognizable. So, I don't know. As I say, it's the only thing really Scottish politics, Parliament anyway, that I'm going to bring up tonight. But depopulation. Jeez, I know you don't agree with a scheme such as this, but I'm just curious if you've got any insight on that. Have you heard of this scheme? I've heard it being mentioned before, but I didn't realise that they'd actually drawn up like the proposals and sent them to Westminster and stuff. So I'll have to look into that tomorrow. But maybe you've heard of it, and if you've not, just general, same shit happening everywhere. But I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that. Like,
well, I'll just refer back to a comment I made in your Telegram chat, mate. Just a very quick point before I pass over to Bonnie Ladd, is that they talk about the depopulation of our country, but the only solution that they will ever consider is importing immigrants. Yeah. Now, at the same time, as we saw quite clearly, Bonnie Ladd covered it on Friday night stream when we had the Woodlander on, and they are basically targeting European stock, the indigenous people of these lands, not to have children. And it is targeted at Europeans, and in this country, particularly the indigenous people, save the climate, don't have kids. So basically, they are all on, they're telling us that, we need a larger population to maintain growth and to pay for old people going forwards. But if you say, so basically you're going to put programs in like Orban, you're going to put programs into, incentivize our people to get busy and start producing. No, that's racist. You lot should be having less children. You can't, once again, you can't have both things at the same time. You can't have You know, these lickspittle shits, and that's exactly what they are in governments. And it's not just Scotland, mate. It'll be Wales, Northern Ireland. I'm not so sure about, but definitely in the Republic of Ireland, they're hell on bent doing this. England, I mean, we're best part of the way through, aren't we? Let's face it. Look at the big cities in this country; they've already fallen. But you can't have it both ways. You can't be concerned about your own population, but also promote and advocate for these green agendas that are going around carte blanche without any rebuttal or any kind of pressure from politicians or anything, because they're all on board with it, obviously, that want European people to have less children. You know, you can't, like I say, if you're concerned about the population of your country, then surely you should be incentivizing the people of that country to populate it. But no, that's racist, because once again, all of these people, a lot of them in these positions of high office, in other words, leaders of countries who literally have no stake in the game going forward. So Nippy is one, Macron was one, Merkel was one, the Dutch bloke, was he Richard or whatever he's called, he's one, Varadkar in Ireland, he's another one. They're evil, demonic creatures. They literally don't care. So they will sell our countries out to the highest bidder to line their own pockets, because they've literally got nothing else to live for beyond this life. You know, they've got nothing to, you know, it's basically, you know, I'll make hay while the sun shines, because when I'm gone, I've got no legacy. So sod everybody else that's on this planet now. And I think it stinks. Bonnie lad, mate, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, well, probably echo a lot what you said then. I don't think we have major differences in points of view. Yeah, it's something like in Scotland, it always it interests me why Scotland want to bring, you know, mass immigration into the particular country, or encourage more people to have, come into the country to work and not work, etc. And they must be, you know, they must see what's happening, especially in England, especially in like the major cities in England, all the issues what it's caused in recent times. It's almost that they want to bring that upon their own people. I just don't understand it, you know, where they're coming from. And it's like you said, it's like a virtue signalling exercise from a lot of these politicians north of the border. That's, you know, attacking Westminster again because of the so-called hostile environment, and we're going to do better than you. We're going to have more refugees in Scotland per capita. We're going to have more asylum seekers per capita, regardless of where they've come from. We're going to do this. We're going to do this because, again, Westminster are not prepared to do it. Again, using that, because they always reference hostile environment every 2 seconds. There's a story today, I saw one at Scottish newspapers briefly, and again, it was mentioned that stupid word, hostile environment. This is what Westminster is going to be like. We need a more caring, humane government in charge of, you know, immigration, etc. And it's just, there's no pushback whatsoever against it. And it's like much the same as in England, the rest of you know, Wales, Northern Ireland, etc. Is that there's no pushback whatsoever. Everybody just sees the benefits all the time, or not necessarily selves, but people in charge, of politicians. They just say, "Oh, we need these people to come into the country. We got these massive labour shortages, you know, like the NHS. Again, they're going to be calling out soon. We've got shortages, HGV drivers. Again, we're going to get much the same as last year. We're going to have all these shortages for, you know, the Christmas industry and stuff like that. So that's another excuse to bring more people over. And just reading, just in England alone, what they were, you know, the proposals, what the amount of people that they want to bring over. It's not a couple of hundred. It's literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people just to work, you know, because these labour shortages. And like we were talking about this, I was talking about, we're working today, and I'm talking to somebody about this at work. And end of the day, that you bring X amount of people over into your own country, might be 100,000, 200,000. Well, you need more people to look after their demands or needs. Sorry, not demands, needs. You know, more people to work in the NHS. It's I don't know. It's forever going on. It goes on and on and on, and there's no end in sight to this fixation with immigration, in my opinion. And I just think, like you said, it's traditional Conservatives now. They don't even push back against it. In, you know, Westminster, they seem to be on board up. We need more people to come into this country, as we've seen with record amounts under the Conservatives. But again, it shocks me to see Scotland wanting to adopt the sort of policies or what's happening, the demographics in England. I just don't understand why they want to do it. And I do struggle with that, to be honest. Obviously, I don't live in Scotland. But when you see a lot of the news coming out of Scotland, it seems that they're very pro-open borders, and they want more immigrants into Scotland to dilute the the Scottish race, the culture and identity. I just don't get it, DJ. I really don't.
Neither do I. I really don't. I mean, they even said, like, if I had the videos to hand, anybody that watches my streams regularly knows I do this all the time. Just while you were speaking, things start coming in my head. I'm like, oh, should I put that on? Should I put that on? I'm trying to refrain from that, but I do have videos very recently where I've clipped and they're sitting there saying that we need to go back into the European Union so we can have. Sturgeon said it. We need to get back into the European Union. We need to get our independence, go back into the European Union, so we can have free movement of people again. Like that. Oh, yeah, that's a selling point. That, like, you know, and Jesus Christ, it drives me insane. And they always blame Brexit as well for like a lack of workers and stuff. And a point I always try to bring up was the fact, well, all the years that we were in the United Kingdom, and not the United Kingdom, sorry, but all the years we were in the European Union, you still couldn't attack them here. The only difference this time around would be if they had fully devolved immigration powers and whatnot, they would be able to attract from the European Union or out with anywhere. It'd be all up to them who they want to import. That's the problem. Because there's two continents out there full of people. You know, I'm looking at you, India, Pakistan, that region. And I'm also looking at fucking Africa. On the flip side of that as well, something that you made reference to there about more that come in, the more they need to be catered for. This is something else that never seems to get addressed. These people get old too, so you're going to have to import more in to look after them, etc., etc. It's just there is not a good outcome to come from this, and I just find it absolutely heinous that every single time the conversation comes up about depopulation, irrespective of which country it is, the solution is always they never talk about birth, you know, incentivizing native births or making it potentially cheaper for up and coming families, or you know, sort of like tax reductions. These are things you can try. And until you've tried them, you can't rule them out. But they won't even talk about trying them. They won't even billy bullshit you and pretend that they've tried these policies and they don't work. No, they just don't mention it at all. Now, if some people sometimes say, oh, instead of moaning about it, what's your solution? Well, my main solution would be, if I was in any position of power, would be to hold a legitimately independent of government citizens assembly, the same way they did that shit with the climate change, which was total bullshit though. You know, people from all over the country came together for the citizens assembly and they all managed to conveniently come up with all of these ludicrous climate policies that you would expect to hear from the ones that are all hysterical. Pull the other one. I'm talking about a legitimate citizens assembly full of ordinary people and it would be heavily populated to people that are in areas of the country that are feeling the effects worst. Not these arseholes in gated communities, or even people from up my way in the Highlands where we don't see that much of it. I'm talking about people who are living the dream of diversity. Let's have an open and honest discussion about what we want for the future of our country. But as things currently stand, we've got a bunch of overpaid, limp-wristed, wet white gay boys and lesbians and feminists dictating the future of our country and speaking about us as a people as if we're expendable. Oh, you're not having kids? That's fine. We'll just get Tyrone in to have kids for you. No, what about us? And as I said earlier on, you don't need to be a demographer nor a mathematician to put two and two together. That is genocidal. That's what it is. That might sound dramatic to some, but it's genocidal in the sense that I'm not talking about we're all going to get put up against the wall and shot. I'm on about they're going to outbreed us. If you're bringing in people to have children on your behalf, that is going to lead to you being outbred. So these people disgust me. They fucking disgust me, pardon my French. This is a subject that doesn't get me heated because I'm sick of it. The way that they talk about us as if we're nothing, you know? But anyway, before I say something I regret, let's talk about something I came across the other day that I find absolutely ridiculous. So this, let me get this up. So this is one of a few LGBT things I came across over the course of the weekend. This one, however, right, okay. So, if my laptop is... So, let me show you this. Are you pansexual? Parents quizzed on their sexual orientation and gender identity by a private school. Now, this is in Scotland. An independent school in Scotland has asked parents intrusive questions about their sexual orientation and their gender identity. Fettes College, which admits children between 7 and 18, has the parents have been sent anonymous surveys to pay. Fucking hell. They sent anonymous surveys to parents as part of a school program by Inclusion Labs to address inclusion. The survey was optional, but once started, no questions could be left unanswered. Parents were asked whether they claimed to be a boy man girl, woman, non-binary, or something else. They were then asked to choose from a list of 8 sexual orientations, including asexual, pansexual, and don't define. Right. Speaking to the Daily Telegraph, one mother, well, this is just the parents, but let's see what FETS is an independent school and is not under any obligation to question parents in this way. In the state sector, the Scottish Government strongly encourages schools to use questionnaires for children. They have been strongly criticised as being intrusive and inappropriate. Earlier this year, almost a third of local authorities in Scotland refused to roll out the Scottish Government's controversial sex surveys, which were disgusting. The government had pushed councils to gather information through its health and wellbeing census, a survey that asked teens in S4 to S6 shocking sexual questions and a primary school children intrusive questions about their home life. In another survey funded by the Welsh Government, children as young as 13 were also asked highly intrusive questions about their sexual experiences. But yeah, like obviously this is sort of old news now. The sex survey stuff was absolutely disgusting. But this here, I mean, it's not like the most imperative of stories, admittedly, but I just find this absolutely perplexing. Like, why? It's bad. I mean, it's horrible enough that like some of these things occur with this, as I say, the health and wellbeing census, which was asking like for 15-year-old kids in Scotland if they've ever had anal sex and stuff like that. Like that's what they were doing in Scotland. But now they're even going after the parents. Imagine getting a letter through your door from a school, your kid's school, and they're asking you like, fucking, I don't know if you've seen this. You've got anything to add to that? Like, just nonsense. Just creepy. Really, really perplexes me.
Yeah, you want me to speak?
I only go.
Yeah, it complexes me because it's hard to Google what does pansexual mean, to be honest. It's quite funny, maybe I'm a little bit out of touch with a lot of things, but I don't think I am. But when it comes to all these variations, you know, the sexual terms what people give themselves, I'm totally lost with it, to be honest with you. And I know it's not the answer you want, but just briefly talking a little bit when I get lost with a lot of this. I remember growing up, you had the rainbow flag. Now it's just a mishmash of all different colours of chevrons. They have different flags for different days, different flags for different months and stuff like that. It just absolutely batters my head in, and maybe that's one of the reasons they do it. And like you say now, the sort of sexualization, the nature, it's just sick. And it's, you know, there is a bit of pushback against this in recent times. We've seen obviously what happened with the Mermaid group and other foundations as well that founded the foundation when it was come to therapy and stuff like that. There has been a pushback against this because a lot of people are seeing a lot of this sort of insidious nature, who's behind this sort of thing. We know what they're pushing on to children. So I have seen something the last couple of weeks now, politicians obviously coming out and saying stuff, not en masse, but a few. And obviously the JK Rowling, that's still going on. That seems to never go away. Maybe because she's very popular. But like I said, then whether it's in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, England, it's a perverted agenda. What's behind a lot of this? What's going on? You know, we talked about this before. When we were kids at school, we had sex education. We learned things. You sort of picked up things as you know. We weren't as naive as I thought we were, but we want. I can speak for myself. Want overtly sexualized. And we looked at sexualities, a boy's a boy, a man's a man sort of thing. We never went down this sort of road of, like I said, promoting, homosexuality, for example. It was there, and people used to laugh about it and giggle and stuff like that. Nobody took it sort of too serious. But when they're going into some of the stuff what they're showing to young children, I just can't get my head around it. I just cannot seriously get my head around as a parent. Luckily enough, my children are not children as such, but so they missed out on a lot of this sort of stuff. But it's just sickening. And one thing I will say, and I've said this before about the Muslim community, and I've talked about this before. A few years ago, I saw this in Birmingham, where they actually came out to that particular school, and they actually said, "No, you're not teaching our children this because it's wrong." And they, said other things, and they've got a very powerful group, the Muslim community, and they were listened to. I'm not saying that they didn't stop teaching what they wanted to teach, but they were listened to. And if that had been like yourself and a group of ourselves, maybe 20, 30 people, just ordinary people, again, I'm going to use that word, ordinary people, if they'd have shown up, I can believe me there'd have been a completely different reaction from the school and the police maybe, and definitely the mainstream media. I can assure you of that. So I just like most normal people, I say that, is they just find it quite sickening, this sort of level of sexualization to children. And like you said, for me, I don't know if it's out there to confuse people, because it seems to me that somebody can wake up in the morning and they can decide what sexuality they're going to be or what version they're going to be today. It's just weird. And you can talk about it, and it is quite humorous sometimes, but there is a dark side to it as well.
Yeah, no, there is. And on that note, I am going to get something up just to show people some of the other grotesque stuff that happens in Scotland. I've got some of the screenshots, but before I do that, if you've got something to add, sensitive. I will say though, before you do it, like I'm the same as you. I mean, I don't know how old you are. I'm not asking you to say your age, but I'm younger than you. Like I'm 27 now. My birthday was this week. Thanks for everybody that said happy birthday and whatnot when I came and went. But anyway, when I was in school, left school in 2014. But sex education was split up into 3 sections, and 2/3 of that wasn't even sex education. It was alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and sex education. And the sex education was pretty damn mediocre. Like, it was none of what you see now. This stuff must have just started after I left, because it's bad now. There's nothing like that. It was just birds and the bees and safe sex. You know, that was really about it. Yeah, but now it's all the genders and I don't know. It's disgusting. And the ages as well. Sex education started for me in primary 7, and I know that it's different down in England. I don't think you actually call it that there, but primary 7, you're about 11 years old to 12 years old, and that's when it started. And then you didn't really get that much off it in primary 7. Then when we went to high school, you got a bit more, but that was really it. Like, but now 4-year-olds and above in Scotland are learning about this disgusting shit. So yeah, sorry, yeah. If you've got something to say, Seth, I'm fired on, Saxon. He's away again, like. You're being unprofessional.
I'm just talking to the chat.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But aye, have you got anything to add to that before I pull up this screenshots?
Oh, and I've got to Simon.
What? You've muted it. Boomer.
Sorry, just.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Snakes in me fucking head up. Anyway, listen. What is this hell bent? It's coming in from all angles. I mean, you know, Bonnie and I, we've covered various stories surrounding the various factions of the LGBT and the trans and all this sort, and then latterly, you know, the drag queen story hour stuff. But what is it with this hypersexualization of children? Well, we know why. You know, there's no secret anymore. But
yeah,
you know, every you know, a blind man running can see, you know, the actual you know, what the end game is for this stuff. And it literally, and I'm telling you now, they're trying to do a twofer, you know, a 2-for-1, because we all know that certain members in the highest of powers around the globe have certain proclivities, shall we say, yeah? But they get a twofer because if they can, you know, ramp it down to sort of, you know, 12 or whatever, you know, like this age, because that's what they're going for at the end of the day, you know, then it immediately absolves all of the sort of foreign contingent that continually grooms our kids of a lot of their crimes. So they get a 2-for-1. You know what I mean? So I just can't understand. You know, well, I can understand. You know, it's demonic, and it's done on purpose for this particular reason. But once again, you know, are people literally too scared to call it out? You know, I mean, Joe Public, are they? Because I'm telling you now,
Joe Slave, yeah, Joe Slave is too enslaved to point it out.
Well,
Evening
exactly,
Lads.
But you know, nobody I know. I mean, I mean, if you put us in a room of people, yeah, you put us in a room of people, and I'd be doing the head count, you know, looking around. I reckon I'm a pretty good judge of people. So if they put like a rando 100 people in, I'll be checking out to see which of the whammons have got multicolored haircuts. Right, you're voting for the P, yeah. Checking out the soy neck beard bloody men for man buns on the head. You're going to be voting for the P, but the vast majority of the other ones, so the 90-odd% of the people that don't fit into these evil demonic categories are going to be absolutely horrified by it, and yet it's just been continually pushed. And once again, exactly, who the protected groups are, because, instead of the media calling this out for the demonic activity that it is, they like to call out the people, people like libs of TikTok that call out this shit. They're more interested on demonizing people who call it out.
But they say that lust darkens the mind, right? E. Michael Jones wrote a book about this, libido dominandi, right? When you entice children into lust, then you darken their minds and you distract them from what is important. Are you guys familiar with the phenomenon of woodland porn? By the way, the woodlander is in the chat. He's probably familiar with it. But the rest of you, are you guys familiar with the phenomenon of woodland porn? It's a serious question.
I haven't
Woodland
got
porn.
No.
Woodland porn
No.
is the phenomenon in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, when there were strategic porn dumps in every woodland area where children played in Western civilization. In every NATO country in Western civilization, there were strategic, massive porn dumps of black bags of hardcore pornographic magazines to thousands and tens of thousands of pounds dumped on every playground and every woodland where children were playing in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, in the US, in Western Europe, even in South Africa, and even in Zimbabwe. Right? Are you guys familiar with this? This was before the internet.
No. That's literally the first time hearing that.
Well, somebody in the chat, I'm sure people in the chat have experience with this. One day you were out playing, and then all of a sudden you stumbled upon a mountain of pornographic hardcore magazines. This is a pan-Western phenomenon. I'm researching this. Anyway, it happened in Norway. It happened all across Western Europe and in America. And this is how they sexualized the children before the internet. And now the children are walking around with phones with hardcore pornographic materials. I mean, it's like the average 6-year-old is watching, I won't even mention, I won't even say the unspeakable act that goes on in these videos. But yeah, there is a libido dominante to darken the minds of the youth and to drive us into depravity. Absolutely.
No, I would agree. When I was in school, like, as I mentioned earlier on, like, sex education, that wasn't really something at the time. It was that big of an issue. But when I was young in school, all the boys had like porn or not on their phone. Like so I know what you're talking about there, but I just want to. I've never heard of what you're on about there. So we're gonna have to look that up after. But this is a couple of screenshots from stuff that they teach kids in Scotland. This is for teachers. Title: Sex, Masturbation, Oral and Anal. Like, there's actually a PowerPoint that goes with this, and it's got like images. Like, I'm not showing them though, but learning intentions. Young people are reminded that a range of sexual behaviors are not just penetrative. These words there are considered as sex. Young people receive accurate information about sexual practices. Young people are encouraged to seek further information. Young people consider the impact that porn has on choices and behavior. Right? And then there's the PowerPoint slide. This is it's talking about benchmarks, distinguishes between a balance of power and abuse, of power in relationships, for example, respect, trust, blah, blah, blah. Evaluate how the media, including social media and pornography, impact on physical and mental health. Understand the rights and responsibilities required for safe and enjoyable sex. I mean, there's more. So there's a lot of this stuff. The history of masturbation. Like, look at this though. This session, introduce the activities along these lines. This session is about sex and focuses on 3 different sexual activities: masturbation, oral sex, and anal. There is no expectation that the young people are having sex. The point is to have the best information about sex. With this subject matter, it's expected that people will have a sense of humor when talking about this, and it's okay to be a bit embarrassed, yada yada. Finally, that there is a serious side to this, because there's some good information in the activity that everyone will find helpful. Share the slides, and as I said, look what it says. Explain that it's worth remembering that sex isn't just about penetrative sex. The law says sexual activity includes mutual masturbation, oral sex or penetrative sex, blah blah. I mean, I feel grim speaking on this subject in truth, but then it's look at I'm not reading that out, but I'm sure everyone in the chat can see that. Like, look at that. Look at that shit. Toy dildos. This is happening. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, that is as disgusting as it gets, and they're teaching this to children in Scotland. Like, I mean, I'm not reading any more of it, but it goes on about the history of masturbation, and I've been on different websites as well where it tells you all about sex toys and stuff. Like,
yeah, it's the end station of liberalism, mate. You guys are familiar with the 120 Days of Sodom, right? From the Marquis de Sade, where the word sadists come from. The Marquis de Sade.
You'll have to translate that into something English.
Marquis de Sade was a nobleman in France. He was obsessed with sodomizing children. He wrote a novel called 120 Days of Sodom, which has been enshrined in the French library. It's a part of the French national heritage. Anyway, this is what liberalism is about. Liberalism is essentially sodomy. That's essentially what it's all about. When you boil down to it, it's global sodomy, right? If you're not allowed to sodomize each other, then you're illiberal. And so liberalism is anti-Christianity. And now we are seeing now how our societies are functioning absent a Christian state. I mean, that's ultimately what we are lamenting here is the loss of Christianity, is the death of our Christian culture. But this is not Christian education that you are reading about here on this stream. This is anti-Christian culture. This is liberalism.
Yeah. Aye, and it's as satanic as it gets, like, but
literally satanic, not metaphorically, literally.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'll jump to you, Bonnie. Have you seen that stuff I just shared there before? You might have heard about it, like, but I mean, is it that bad down in England, or am I correct in saying that Scotland probably takes the title this time around?
I'm not, well, like I say, my kids have grown up, so they're luckily outside of that education stuff, but I can't think of anything more bloody horrifying. You know, it's I mean, when they're talking about, you know, was it 7-year-olds learning about this shite, you know, when I was a kid in the 70s, you know, it was all you could think about was, you know, the next game of Doffers or bikes or, you know, whose bonfire you were going to raid. You know what I mean? That getting down and girls. Nobody. We weren't interested in girls. You know, girls were like sort of you had to tolerate until you got to about 13, 14, and then all of a sudden they became interesting. Do you know what I mean? What the hell's going on?
And it's got to be. I mean, I don't want to speculate, but if they're teaching that sort of stuff to kids earlier and earlier and earlier and more graphic, like, it's got to lead to some children. I mean, it's not the sort of stuff I talk about in truth. It makes me uncomfortable because I'm a normal human being. But
it's meant to sound. I can tell you guys, we were out playing in the woods, playing cowboys and Indians and cops and robbers, and then one day there was a massive mountain of hardcore pornography, and now all the boys are standing there watching this, looking at pornography. We're hiding. We have porn stashes all around now because we've become addicted to these pornographic magazines because they were strategically planted, and it was not just in Norway; it was in every Western country. So this is not a coincidence. It's a coincidence, maybe, but it's not a coincidence.
No, I'm gonna have to look at that. That's no fucking. I don't know. That sounds disgusting, but I couldn't believe it. But before I move on to the other part of this LGBT thing, like, I don't know if you're still there, Bonnie, but have you say you follow quite a lot of the stuff down in England pertaining to schools? Not have you seen anything that grim? Like,
yeah, I think much the same sense. My children left school some years ago, and when they were young, it was never as nefarious as that. There's been some headline stuff. Somebody put a good thing there about Brighton. I remember reading that article last year from the Daily Mail. You do see some shocking headlines about the young children being taught. But what level they're taught, I really don't know too much about it, to be honest with you. I do see stuff on social media. It's a lot of stuff from America, what people have pushed out, you know, like say from California, for example, what they're introducing legislation when it comes to child sex education. But it is, like I said again, when we talked about it at the beginning, it's just disgusting. It really is, as you know, as a parent, and to see some of the stuff what's being pushed out, I just really find it really disgusting.
No, I agree. I mean, Scotland's got it enshrined in law now that this is to be taught. First country in the world to enshrine it into law. That's one of the first things Nicola Sturgeon did when she took over in 2015 from Alex Salmond. One of the first policies that she put into motion was enshrining into law that Scottish children from as young as possible have to have an LGBT inclusive education. Now, I hate the arguments that they use to try and justify it. Oh, what's wrong with teaching about same-sex couples and gay marriage? We just want to stop the hate. All right, whatever. You run with that. We could quite. I've just showcased screenshots of how this has gone way overboard. The slippery slope fallacy ain't no fallacy, you know. But this as well came out just 2 days ago. Obviously, next week in Parliament, there's going to be a debate, and I hate using that word in a Scottish context because they don't debate; it's a circle jerk. But obviously, it's going to be on this gender recognition shit. But one of the few institutions that's come out to oppose it is Scotland's Catholic Church. They've opposed loosening the rules on changing gender in Scotland. And just a wee bit of this. It says that the Catholic Church says it's concerned about the Scottish Government's gender recognition reform bill, which will be debated on the 27th of October. The proposed legislation would remove the current requirement for a diagnosis of gender dysphoria and reduce the requirement to have lived in the acquired gender for 2 years to just 3 months. Also seeks to reduce the age at which someone can apply for gender recognition certificate from 18 years of age to 16, with Sturgeon saying the change in law is to make gender transitioning less degrading, intrusive, and traumatic. The bill, which overrides biological reality, raises serious concerns about the safety, health, and well-being of children and vulnerable people, and safe spaces for women and girls, said in a statement by the Catholic Parliamentary Office of the Scottish Bishops' Conference. Just to finish off, the Church is pastorally sensitive to the experience of those who, even at certain moments in life, desire to have a body and identify other than their biological gender and may begin to behave in ways culturally associated with this orientation. They are to be met with compassion and particular care and support in the challenges and distress that come with gender dysphoria. The briefing paper emphasised the Church in principle opposes the Gender Recognition Act of 2004, which allows for people with gender dysphoria to acquire a certificate attesting to their gender identity, even if it's not the same as their biological sex. And just finish off this last paragraph, and then I'll see if you've heard anything on this or whatever, because it does go on for a bit. Affirming the objective foundation of sex and gender from long-standing human experience confirmed in the data of the natural sciences, the Church does not recognise a legitimate prerogative of the state to redefine in law what is male and female in a way that denies the biological reality of sexual difference. These are part of the natural law, which expresses the unchanging principles of the human person in society. So obviously, this on the backdrop, though, of what we've already sort of alluded to a certain extent, the LGBT education and stuff, kids now from as young as 4 years old in Scotland, if they express gendered confusion, this is actually a fucking thing. I made a video on it last year. Children can tell their school that they think they're transgender, and the school then has to go along with it, reaffirm this delusion, a delusion that more often than not is generated from the grotesque education that they're now receiving. But the worst part about it is that they don't have to tell the parents. So it's a secret between child and school. That's a fact, right? So my point that I bring that up is if they're teaching children about all these different genders and stuff from as young as possible, and now they're reducing the age, but then they can go and get a gender recognition certificate and stuff. Like, you're just asking for problems. And yeah, Steve Shaw, UNESCO, a lot of it comes from UNESCO and the WHO. Funnily enough, I went over a document years ago from the WHO when they were talking about little children touching themselves and stuff. But yeah, UNESCO, which is the United Nations educational arm. But don't know if you've heard anything about the gender recognition stuff that's on the verge of coming into effect in Scotland. But even if you haven't, sure you'll have something to say on the matter anyway.
UNESCO and WHO are both from the UN, and the UN is a Freemasonic organization. The UN was launched by the Blavatskyan milieu, and their goal is to set up a one world government in which all men are created equal, and do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And so Christianity will literally be criminalized in this new world order. And that's what we're seeing. That nationism, any type of discernment, any type of particularness will be criminalized as discriminatory. I mean, they've already pulled off the miracle of making the word discrimination a crime in the minds of the masses. I mean, to discriminate is to have taste. Every time you make a choice, you are discriminating. So if you remove an organism's ability or right to discriminate, you are removing that organism's ability to choose. You are reducing that organism to a slave. And that is what is happening to us. So we are literally being enslaved. And it's time for a slave revolt. Thank you.
Amen. What about you two? Hello?
Yeah, one thing I'll say is the Catholic Church. I've seen a lot of stories come out of the Catholic Church in recent years. It's, you know, what you're just alluding to when it comes to the sexualization of children, transgenderism, etc. And they seem to be some sectors of the Catholic Church seem to be sticking to what the old values of the Catholicism, the Christian sort of leanings in that sense. But then there is sort of a breakaway sort of feeling that they're a bit outdated, and that's how I feel with the religious side of it. Because I'm not ashamed to say I used to go to church, took my children to church, and took my children to a Catholic school, and that's one of the reasons. And I was brought up with that sort of traditional view of the sort of Catholic upbringing when it comes to family values and stuff like that. That's the way I looked at it. People are probably going to disagree with me there. But I just find, like I said, I was reading some when you were just talking, when you were mentioning the thing about the Catholic Church, it come up, and they're in a sort of way of funny because they still believe in, my friend talks about this as well. They still believe in a man's a man and a woman's a woman, a representation of God and stuff like that. But there is a sort of big pushback against it. And I think myself, once, they might be the last sort of like religious, westernized religious group, what's standing up or standing against what's going on. I might be wrong, he said, but that's the opinion I've got with some hardliners in the Catholic Church. But when it comes to, like I said, the gender stuff at 4-year-old, there was a teacher recently in England who got sacked. I think his case came up this week. It was the big thing about it on the news last week, because I think he misgendered a young child, or he wouldn't give her or him his pronouns because he said it was wrong, that the child was too young. And it was just, the school kept it all in the school. The school, he didn't even tell his parents or something daft. It was just absolutely hideous. So this maths teacher wouldn't go along with it, and they actually sacked him, or he got suspended. He's appealing against it. So that's what sort of levels it happens. And a lot of people are frightened of challenging some of these sort of conceptions what are going about. But the headline there is just sick to me. It really is. Like I said, a lot of this sort of news, I just find it quite frightening. And I don't know, I feel like I'm out of touch sometimes because I don't always really read into a lot of this sort of stuff. But I can say again, I just find it's truly abhorrent. It is demonic. It really is. The level of depravity, what's been pushed onto young children. It's just sick.
It is. I've covered this. I did a video on this last year. I can't remember what it's called, but if you just go through my channel and find it, I went through all the documentation that came out about this. But yeah, just for anybody that wasn't aware, like this is a thing in Scotland. So, I won't go through the article, but Scotland will let pupils change gender at age 4 without parents' consent. Right, so because obviously it starts from 4 and above. So think about like tomboys and stuff back in the day. A wee girl that was more into like boy activities and that. They grew out of it more often than not, and they're normal women now. These girls don't stand a chance now. No, they don't, because it's been reaffirmed. But this part without even telling the parents, so your child could be effectively living a double life. Comes home and keeps it a secret from you, but the teachers at the school, they are all on board with it. They're all calling your little boy Catherine at school, but he comes home and you call him James. Like, nah, I don't agree. But yeah, for anybody that's not aware, just if you watch my video, you can go and see this yourself. Supporting transgender young people in schools, guidance for Scottish schools. So that is a thing. But yeah, it's just.
I'm just telling you guys. Fuck school, stay cool. Stay cool. Fuck school. I mean, what did you even learn in school anyway, other than reading and writing and basic arithmetic? Everything else was a lie. History was fake, right? Everything you were taught in the social sciences was fake. I mean, yeah, reading and writing is good, and of course arithmetic. But other than that, it's all bullshit, mate. It's a slave training camp. So we need to. I think the average teacher could literally be replaced by a hologram, and the hologram would do an equal job, if not better, than the teacher, because teachers are just NPC repeater bots, right? They're just regurgitating whatever they're fed by government to indoctrinate the children with. Right? So
Yeah.
I think school is highly overrated. Highly overrated.
I would agree, especially now. Especially now. I mean, I can't speak for anywhere else, but another problem I could say in a Scottish context is a lot of there's too many, no offence to any women watching, there's too many female teachers. The education system is becoming extremely feminized, and a lot of them are activists. And there's a few channels that I watch that pertain to Scottish education. One's called Education Scotland on YouTube and that. And it's just panel after panel after panel of all these feminist women sitting there talking about things that can be done in the education system to help girls. And it's just, if it's not that, it's LGBT. If it's not that, it's anti-racism. If it's not that, it's climate change. There's always some sort of political, something, what's the word I'm looking for? Always political, put it that way. They're just activists. They're just
mal-education. They're being mal-educated. They're being misinformed. And if one thing I've learned it is that it is better to be uninformed than to be misinformed. It's better to be uneducated than to be mal-educated. So yeah, it's better to fuck school and stay cool.
Don't disagree. There was one more LGBT thing. I'm just trying to find it. Where is your thing? God, to find your thing on my Telegram. There's one more here just before I come off this, and then Sensen sent me a few news stories, and then that'll be it really for the tonight. But we've all heard of the charity Mermaids, I'm assuming. The transgender charity in the UK. Well, another story's come out. If it's not drag queens being very questionable, it's people at Mermaids, eh? So sharing my screen again quickly. The now present share and Chrome tab. Mermaids. There we go. So Mermaids employee posted sexual images of himself dressed as a schoolgirl. Criticism continues to pile on controversial pro-trans group Mermaids after it was revealed it employed a man who had posed for highly sexualized photographs and posted them online. Darren Mew posted an upskirt picture of himself on Instagram with the caption, "Sorry, I can't hear you. I'm just out here living my fantasy," alongside the hashtag non-binary finery. He also posed for extremely explicit photographs featuring full frontal and rear nudity for LGBT publication Horse magazine as part of a sex collage. In calling for an investigation at the charity, which is now underway, concerned parents reported the image to the Charity Commission. The parents said in the image for the collage, Mew has seemingly, I don't want to read that, and expressed concern that the graphic clearly presents the imagery of amputated breasts, adding, in another, Darren wears a hentai-style schoolgirl skirt and adopts a proactive pose and appears to be broadcasting sexualized little girl vibes. Until earlier this week, Mew, a former writer for gay lifestyle magazine Attitude, identified himself on LinkedIn as a digital engagement officer for Mermaids, with the role involving working across the organization's website, social media channels and forums, as well as working to build and maintain relationships with influencers, while the job description lists experience working with young people as desirable. The Times reports that part of this role could involve attending residential weekends. So, I mean, I'm not going to go too much more into it, but the point is, time after time after time with these charities, LGBT Youth Scotland, there's been paedophiles in there and very questionable characters. Drag queens, that's just a story in and of itself. There was one that was doing the rounds a few days ago. I don't know if you've it. It was disgusting. I think it was some bar in America, but they were advertising a 12-year-old drag queen. Just disgusting. Like this, I don't know.
Yeah, but they never run out of energy. They never run out of fuel. They're indefatigable, these demons. It's so exhausting. It's all so tiresome, isn't it? But yet we can't give up, can we? No. But yeah, I empathize with your disparaging sentiments, because it really is exhausting. It's like a marathon, and we just can't stop.
No,
because they won't.
Just seems to get fucking worse every week, you know. I'd love to do a stream where there's nothing bad to talk about. To be honest. Bonnie, what were you going to say there?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, it's just that story. So there's a group I follow, and it's I found them out via social media, and they highlight a lot of the stuff what's going on. It's not a Christian group; it's just a group what advocates with this stuff, this nonsense stuff being pushed as it is. And the guy in question you're talking about, I don't know if any of you've actually seen the imagery, and it's very explicit what it actually shows. If it's in like that particular magazine. And they sort of defended Mermaid. They actually said, yeah, we scrutinise, we have background checks on all those employees. Well, obviously they don't, because they actually said they check the social media accounts and stuff like that, because obviously they're interacting with children at some point. It's just absolutely sick. And like you said, they get a guy there. If he wants to do that, that's up to him. If he wants to live that kind of lifestyle, that's how he floats his boat, so to speak. That's fair enough. But then for him then to actually be working with children, it's just then you got to two and two, and you think, what's that organisation all about? It's beyond sick. But if you just Google it, that's from the Times. But if you're actually looking at have you seen the actual imagery, Resisting Lies?
No, I didn't want to.
Well, it's not. I'm not telling you. I don't mean it in that sort of sense, but obviously you've read that you've quoted that article. But if you actually see the imagery. And I'm not saying going into graphic imagery, because it did actually show you some of the pictures in this particular article I read. And it did actually point out, well, what's going on with this mermaids? How can they employ somebody? What they're actually saying on record is saying that we've done social media checks, we've done background checks on this individual, and they cleared him. Do you know what I mean? And you're right, what you're saying, Resisting Lies, the stories week after week. And there was one from this country, I think you posted it, about a drag queen guy who's been done for horrible things again, imagery of children. Then there were a guy in Australia that was on the news. He's been done. I think, again, same sort of thing. He's done for molestation, and same stories in America with these people. So a lot of them, and we've said this before when we talk about this, they have an insidious agenda, why they are like they are and what they're trying to do, working with children, stuff like that. It's truly sick. It really is. It's like the fall of Rome, the Roman Empire, the things that are going on in the West at the moment. I shake my head in disbelief to see what things.
It's as if a bunch of Jimmy Saviles are in charge. Right?
Yeah,
it's like as if Jimmy Savile was just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
Oh yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. But we'll never get to the full extent of what really happened in the respect of the BBC. There's been a lot of allegations being made, and well, not sadly, but a lot of the people the allegations were made against are dead now. So that's quite, they should have been dealt with years and years ago. And it's same with a lot of institutes like the Catholic Church. That's still being outed for stuff it's done years ago, like a lot of children's homes in the UK, and imagine where you live as well, where the paedophiles deliberately went into those particular homes because they knew it was easy. It's a horrible thing to say. It was easy meat to exploit vulnerable children. Yeah, it's not a very good subject. You're right there, DJ. I do share your thoughts on this. It's something I don't get any pleasure about talking about. I really don't. But it's something that sometimes needs to be said. But it's something you don't take with any with pleasure at all. It's quite a disturbing subject.
No, it absolutely is. I mean, you just need to look at it as well. That you don't see groups set up by heterosexuals for heterosexual children. Like, these people do this all the time, all these different organizations, all these different charities for LGBT children. But LGBT is more or less, I would say, about 95% of it. You can make the argument there's a wee bit about just accepting gays, etc. The vast majority of it, though, is just, it's minging. Like, it's sexual, it's sexualization, and it's grotesque sexual acts and stuff. There's no getting away from it. So if you've got organizations full of these people that are all into that weird stuff, and by all means, do what you want in your own home, but the fact remains the same that they're in environments for children. Like, and I'm not saying they're all paedophiles, but time after time after time after time, there is quite questionable characters that are ousted from these groups.
Over 50% of pedophiles are gay sodomites, right? So most pedophiles are actually gay, right? So a gay man is 5 times as likely to be pedophile as a heterosexual man. But you're not allowed to notice patterns, right? Because noticing patterns is discernment, and discernment is discrimination, and discrimination is hate. It's hate, okay? It's hate to be conscious in the New World Order. You're not allowed to be conscious in the New World Order. That's hate. It's not even an exaggeration. I'm not even exaggerating.
No, I don't disagree. To be fucking honest, I'm sick of it. I really am. And you did make it. No, when you said fuck school, be cool. Like, the only advice I can really give to people at this point is that if you've got the means to do it and you've got kids, that you really should consider homeschooling. Or the other alternative, obviously, is like pull your kids out of these classes, when you know that they're about. But the problem is, in Scotland anyway, they've got, it's so bad here now that they've managed to enshrine into every subject LGBT. So, like, in maths, you've got LGBT in maths now, for example. I've done a video on this many years ago, like, so I'm thinking off the top of my head, but like, they've managed to do it so it's in every subject now. In art, you learn about
It's in physics. It's in physics now. I mean, yeah, it's everywhere, bro. And it's like, so where is the democracy? This is not a government for the people, by the people. This is bullshit. This is no democracy. This is a top-down, autocratic, satanic rule. We don't have a say.
Hold on a minute. So it's in physics, right? So does that mean you can turn from being a black hole into a stellar nursery?
Bingo.
There you go. Well, there you go. See, it works on the macro level. You see, you don't just have to have a sausage chop or a sticky on hot dog. You can do it at the universal level. So black holes can become stellar nurseries, big columns producing new planets. Wow, this is revolutionary. I'm going to have to rethink my physics now. That's brilliant. Thanks for educating me.
Okay, where did that one go? Here's another LGBT story that Sense sent me. Oh, Jesus Christ! It's just yes. Well, no, my videos that I made today. Oh, can I actually? No. You just give me an idea. Don't worry. Well, we've got a story of Sense sent, but this is only a 40-second clip. I actually really have to play this. I don't know if any of you have seen this video, but the state of Scotland, I swear to fucking God, I need to play this. Right, I was watching this today and I could not believe this guy read this out. He's quoting S&P documents, right? So I'll mute my mic and I'll show you this.
The Fire and Rescue Framework for Scotland is a classic of the SNP government genre, all jargon and graphics. Page 7 is this kaleidoscope-style graphic setting out SFRS strategic priorities, which include, and I quote, the need to grow up loved, sharing opportunities, wealth and power, a globally competitive, entrepreneurial, inclusive and sustainable economy, and to make a positive contribution internationally. Minister, do the people of Scotland not just want our firefighters to turn up and be there when they need them, rather than this exercise in jargon?
Minister. Obviously, the main priority of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service is prevention, protection and keeping the people of Scotland safe.
Firefighters need to grow up loved. Like,
I see old Boris Karloff turned up late.
Who? Oh, Finlip, sorry, aye. But like, have you ever heard such shit? The Scottish Government's policy for firefighters is they need to grow up loved. Like, what? I was watching that today and I thought, this country cannot get any more embarrassing. What the fuck?
Yeah, but it's not your country. The people, Norwegians tell me the same thing. Oh, Norwegians are so stupid. Norwegians tell me we're so stupid, we're so pathetic. But then you look at Sweden, the same or even worse. Denmark, the same or even worse. Scotland, the same or even worse. Holland, the same or even worse. France, same. Germany, same. England, same. Ireland, same. Australia, America, every Western country, the same. So it's not the Scottish people. We are victims here of sophisticated indoctrination, pan-Western, sophisticated indoctrination. And so it's very tempting to disparage our people. I get it. But we shouldn't fall for that temptation. And we should rather view our people as victims of a genocidal agenda to brainwash our people into self-annihilation. And we need to put our heads together and find a way out. Right? It's not just a Scottish problem. This is a pan-Western problem. This is a problem for all white Western peoples.
Oh no, I'm not disparaging the Scottish people, by the way. I'm disparaging the people in that parliament. But no, I don't disagree. But before I move on to this, have you got anything to add to that, Bonnie? Like, the firefighters being loved?
No, but there was another story about firefighters this week, and it was in England, and they've actually lowered the requirements, the physical requirements. So it makes it, they're saying it doesn't make it easier for women. It's to do with ladders. They're using these new ladders because some of the female firefighters they were too heavy. So they've come up with this lighter ladder now. So it makes it actually easier for the ladies to actually handle the ladders. It's just quite a funny story. It was in one of the local regional newspapers. It's come with some criticism, so so they're bending the rules to make it easier for female firefighters, etc. So, and there was another article about some of the firefighters being overweight and stuff like that. I saw that today. Thing, but I couldn't really tell. I'll leave it at that. I'm just going on. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm heard that story, to be fair. But they've done similar things in America now as well, lowering the requirements for you to get in the military and that. That's just ridiculous. By doing that, they acknowledge there's differences between man and woman, but at the same time, they try with everything in their power to, say that there isn't. But somebody was going to jump in there, I think. And I
was just going to say, as a salad dodger, all I'll say is this: if I'm trapped in a burning building and they send a woman in, I hope to fuck it's a trans. Upper body strength and all that.
Fair point. Yeah. So this is one you sent me. There's quite a lot of LGBT stuff tonight, has to be said. But so it says here, City Hall is to pay 625 grand to Pride in London to help deliver the capital's Pride celebrations over the next 5 years. The organisation was chosen by a group of representatives from LGBT plus communities. What a shock. A community council will be created along with an anti-racism plan, anti-white, and a stage for the trans community. London Mayor Sadiq Khan said the Muslim Sadiq Khan is looking forward to seeing the results of the group's ambitious plan. So a Muslim is looking forward to see the ambitious plans pertaining to anti-racism and LGBT using presumably taxpayers' fucking money. Non-profit organisation Pride in London has run previous Pride events in the city with more than 150 of their volunteers working on a series of events each year. Hundreds of organisations turned out to support the 50th London Pride, blah, blah. Community-led organisations were invited to apply for the funding between July and September, and the winning bid was selected as a result of the open tender process. So, yeah. Well, I don't know. I can't look at that, man. It's just like Weimar on steroids, eh? So, Mr. Khan said, London is a beacon of inclusiveness around the world, and that is all part due to the powerful impact that the Pride March of solidarity and celebration has had in our society. Christopher Joel De Shields, Executive Director of Pride in London, said, our dedicated team of volunteers look forward to engaging with LGBT plus communities to build better, ensuring that our platform amplifies national and global LGBT issues, celebrates our communities' successes, and empowers LGBT individuals through our values of visibility, unity, and equality. Oh, God. So that's taxpayers' money, presumably, on that nonsense. Am I correct? Taxpayers' money, yeah?
It's incredible, isn't it? They want us to die. Diversity, inclusivity, equity. Die. The gay want our nations to die. I mean, it's that blatant. I mean, they're literally pushing a policy that's called die on our nations.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're not orthodox.
Yeah. Hey, we have a new policy here. It's called die. And the flag, the flag is the rainbow flag. And anyone who's read the Bible, right, the rainbow is the symbol made by God after the flood to symbolize his bond with creation and his promise that he will never drown us again. So the rainbow is God's covenant with creation. And they take this symbol and they take and they call it the pride, which is like the gravest sin. Like the Lord hates pride. So we should take pride in sin, and we should march, and we should take this symbol from God and reverse it and invert it and take pride and take the children out and march for sodomy, global sodomy. Take pride in sodomy. This is literally a satanic agenda. It's literally satanic. And for the people who struggle with faith, for the people who struggle to believe in Jesus Christ, nobody can blame you because we are so distracted in this day and age with all this technology and electricity and all these screens everywhere. It's very hard to keep your faith. But even if you're unable to genuinely believe, I say you should just pay lip service to Christianity. You should LARP as a Christian. I mean, just give it a go. At the very least, you should at the very least be culturally Christian, and you should pay lip service to Christian talking points, even if you don't believe it in your heart. For the love of God, for the love of the West, for the love of your children and our countries and our culture.
No, I'd agree. I will say, what was it? Sorry, I'm reading that there. I can't say that, Gudgy. I'm going to close up pretty soon anyway because I've got work in the morning. But I will say before I hand it over to the rest of us that, albeit I'm not a Christian per se, I do think that with the decline of Christianity, it can't it's undeniable as Christianity's began to. It's still like the largest religion for now in the UK anyway. But as you know, it's not as heavily Christian as it once was, and as that has begun to happen, simultaneously we're seeing sort of the decadence emerge and the depravity and all the fucking debauchery as you mentioned. So like it's quite clearly a link between the decline in Christianity and the rise in what's satanic in many respects. But Sansom, you fired that story to me. Like I don't know if you've read any more into that. Like, but if you got anything else to add to that, Gudgy?
Yes, it is. It is publicly funded, as you would expect, because, well, having said that, all of these groups we all know are pretty much sponsored by NGOs, and you know, in this particular thing, all paths leads to George Soros because he just wants to inveigle himself into all of these kind of activities because they are disabling tactics. Disabling because obviously if people stop to realize, you know, who's actually shaking the hand jar, and that's not your national politicians, you know, they just control puppets. You know, these minuscule sort of minority of globalists would shit themselves if the entire world thought, hold on a minute, you know, this isn't right. Let's go and sort those guys out proper, and then we'll sort things out. Because like I say, they're antagonistic.
Excuse
they're
me.
continually.
Sansom, I just got to interrupt everybody. Boris Johnson's just pulled out the race for big prime minister. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I saw that. I just so excuse me. Somebody in the chat mentioned that, and well, good, because that means whoever gets in next week, it'll probably be a Penny and Rishi Sunak ticket, and like I say, they have no legitimacy, and so they will be forced to have a general election. And like I say, 2019 was the last election. 2022 could be December 2019 was the last election. December 2022 literally could be when we have the next one, because they've got no mandate. You know, they'll form a government, but it's just be a caretaker government. And I just want to know who got to Boris, because why would he cut short his son in his greasy arse in the Barbados, you know, in the Bahamas, to come back to do this if all of a sudden he's I'm not actually going to run after all. I'm not going to. So he's either been told, you know, yeah, it's a busted flush, Bojo, but we need you to, you know, gatekeep later on down the line. So can you just pull out, mate? Or it's basically, yeah, we don't care, Boris, fuck off. You know, you're a busted flush. We don't care about you anymore. We're going full pelt Starmer. Because like I say, it doesn't matter who's in. It doesn't matter if it was Dishy Rishi or Dame Keir. We're going to get the same government anyway, you know, which is basically the globalist agenda. But going back to this LGBT thing, like I say, you know, Sadiq Khan can pull, you know, a cool half million out of his arse pocket to throw at this waste, because that's what it is. You know, it's just a waste. But even if he wasn't there, do you think that Pride wouldn't go ahead? Of course it fucking would, because the idiots, this sort of, you know, the NGO top boys would be funding it anyway. You know, so basically, once again, it's just a feedback loop where public money will get pushed to some organisation or another, knowing full well that out of that 650 million, a nice little bit of beak wetting will come back to the civil servants and politician advocates who've promoted this thing. That's the way they always work. Like I say, You know, you look at all the money transferal that's gone because of COVID. You look at all of the money transferal that's gone to support the current thing over there in Eastern Europe. They don't do them because they give a shit. You know, they don't do it because they give a shit about. I mean, half of the buggers didn't even believe it in the first place when it comes to COVID. None of them give two shakes of a monkey's toss about Ukraine or Russia, and certainly not the people. But they'll promote it because they know if, you know, for every $1 billion or whatever you want to term it that goes out to the Ukraine, you know, about 10, 15, 20 million will be coming back, you know, the other way and finding its way into the various people who are pushing this stuff's pocket. It's just so transparent now. It's unbelievable. So, like I say, you know, first of all, you know, once again, it's hypocritical because you've got the old mayor, you know, Muslim mayor Sadiq Khan, saying, yeah, this is such a great thing, where the reality is, would he be pushing for it in his own country? Because let's face it, all of those people that are dancing around with bloody arseless leather chaps and bloody, you know, dildos strapped to them, they'd be getting thrown off a tall building somewhere soon, wouldn't they? You know, that's literally what would happen. So it's like, oh yeah, happy. Telling you now, these fuckers like the Khans and all that lot, they're just waiting until they've got the numbers, and then we're all fucked.
Yeah, like I said, the story might not seem a lot of money because they get national lottery funds. They all fund it, as you know, so it's just a drop in the ocean, the money they're actually receiving. But it's quite funny this year, and I didn't really know till what they do is they have a pride march, then the week later they have transgender march as well. I don't know if you actually saw that. And they've done that in a few places now. They did it in Brighton as well. And that's the thing you're going to start seeing is you're going to see the normal pride march, because they all fall out with each other, don't they, a lot of these groups now. So you can have a pride march, then a week later, or maybe 2 weeks later, you'll have a transgender pride march as well. It's absolutely hideous. I couldn't believe it. So I reading about it just while you guys were talking, because I remember posting about it because I was shocked. And it's like that march down in Scotland, what I posted on my YouTube channel, which is, you know, a lot of people have seen, where that Fraggle Rock. It's like all the people from Fraggle Rock are on that march, transgender stuff. And I've seen that a lot. You've seen, I'm not saying it's a split, but you see the transgender movement sort of get a lot more traction in some respects. But I think you're going to see more of them getting pushed to the front as well. And I think they're going to be having their own marches as well, if that makes sense, guys. So there might be a scenario where on a Saturday it might be Pride March, then on Sunday it'll be transgender march. So they're rubbing it in. They're coming all different angles. Even following week they'll have drag queen march or something like that. Well, that's how bad it's getting. And you know, we can laugh about it, but it's just incessant. So, like I said, when you think you've had one march, there'll be another one, then there'll be just constant. Because it's like, I said this in a video, Meadow, it's like the marching season with the Protestants, so they do the marching season. And it's much the same now with this sort of the pride and transgender and this sort of stuff. It's just like I say, it's just idiots. And like Sensen rightly said, this money, they get this money, they're getting money funded from all over. I don't agree with it in that sense where they're funding, but like I said, they do get a lot of money funded into them because you know, it's well organised, and a lot of the costumes and stuff like that, they do cost quite a lot of money, but that's what it is at the moment. Yeah, so watch out for that, guys. You're going to see a lot more types of marches split over weekends, or they might have them. But like I said, they did it a couple of times this year, and it's something I've seen more because, again, a lot of these movements from the transgender movement don't get along with a lot of the pride movement because, you know, the lesbians and stuff like that, they don't like them people. They're always arguing. So they want some of these groups now decide, well, we'll do his own thing now. That's how it is, unfortunately, folks. So yeah, that's my comment on that. And like I said, the money's a drop in the ocean.
Just shows you how helpless the atheist white male is against the great Satan. I mean, if you don't believe in God, if you don't fear God, you are completely... You don't have any armor, you don't have any weapons to defend yourself with, because you believe that you evolved from a monkey. So what the fuck does it matter anyway if there's a sodomite parade, right? I mean, literally. But I wanted to change the subject to a little bit lighter note. Did you guys notice my nigga Yee last week in Paris? He was launching a new brand called White Lives Matter, right?
Oh, yeah.
He and his what's her the woman. That's right. They were wearing Candice Owens. Yeah. They were wearing White Lives Matters sweaters, and the Jewish owner of the factory or whatever refused to manufacture these sweaters because White Lives Matters is hate.
Yeah, the three
see?
most deadly words in the English
So
language.
yeah, exactly. Because because Ye is like the biggest celebrity in Western civilization at this moment. I'm not saying that's necessarily a positive, but it is what it is. And when he wants to launch a new brand called White Lives Matter, and that is objectively outright criminalized by Jews, what does that tell us? What does that tell us? It tells us that there is a white genocide. And even if a black man stands up and says, "You know what? This is bullshit. I'm not going to be a part of this. White lives matter." He is criminalized. Yeah, so we're in DEFCON 3, gentlemen. We're in DEFCON 3, and everybody needs to support a nigga Ye, man. A nigga Ye.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to support a nigga Ye.
I will say though, you do realise that we're on a Wee Hats platform right now. You've just named it up the minute. Like, come on now, Susan might be watching this stream. Just saying.
Sorry about that.
It's all good, but shit. Man, I don't know. I'll see what happens. See if it gets taken down, and I won't be responsible. But the last thing I'll say on the LGBT thing before I wrap up and stuff, though, is though like they've even started doing the other thing they've done here as well. Is like, so I think that the LGBT Pride history stuff's different in America, like month-wise or something, because it's ended up we've got like 2 months now here. You know, like instead of the LGBT History Month, but the one at the start of the year, and there's one at the end of the year as well. I don't know if it's already happened or no, but I'm sure there's one in like September or something. No, August, but there's one in like February. So they take the piss now. They got Black History Month, they've got 2 different LGBT months.
Well, they'll have one for Transgender Month, won't they? That must, they might already have that, but that's going to happen soon as well, isn't it?
Yes, after that entire. And then we'll have Debbie Fluid. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever read some of the the different gender identities they've got. There's so many now. It's just ludicrous. But on that note, folks, as I do have work in the morning, I'm going to wrap up a bit now. So I'll just go down the panel. If they've got anything they want to share or whatever, then be my guest. Like, I'll come to you first, Sarama, and then you want to plug or that, then fire on. I don't have the links to hand.
Yeah. I would just say, as usual, just keep it simple. What Ye should have said is, "You're anti-white." This is anti-white hatred, and he should just have called them anti-white and won the fight, right?
Yeah.
So this is the message that we need to drive into the mainstream. The system is anti-white. It's a crime to be white. Diversity is a code word for white genocide. Call them anti-white and win the fight. Do not go gentle into that night. Call them anti-white and win the fight. Thank you.
We got Marshall Mathers over here, like, I don't disagree, you know, but my dogs are coming on. I'm going to come to you, Mr. Saxon. Saxon, man, and you want a plug? Are you streaming next week or what? On Tuesday? Or...
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure being on your last ever stream, mate. And no, well, yeah. So next Friday, if all things being well, I'll be on Bonnie Ladd's channel for the Grim Up North stream with Ragnar Ironspear. So that could potentially be Bonnie Ladd's last ever stream next week.
Yeah.
Failing that, and then immediately after the Grim Up North stream over on John Davidson's channel, it's the film night, Friday film night, because it's the last Friday of the month, and we're doing the review of the film Christine, the 1983 film Christine, directed by somebody, John Carpenter, based on the old Stephen King novel. And then on Saturday, Bonnie Ladd hasn't decided what we're doing yet, but it may have a little. If you know, if we're doing something on Saturday night, it might have a little bit of a sort of a horror-y, Halloween-y type slant. So that's all I've got planned for next week. And like I say, mate, really enjoyed streaming with you, and hopefully, you know, in the future we'll keep in touch.
Yeah. Oh no. I thought it was going to be the LGBT S&P BAME officer that got my channel, but no, it was Sarama. Thanks. But anyway, on that note, I checked private comments and the StreamYard thing for a second, though. Just if you've got it to hand, I'll play us out with that, like, because it's a belter. But Bonnie Lad, very much appreciate you coming on. Like, you've got anything you want to plug or that? I don't have the links to hand, but I'll put them in the comments after.
Yeah, well, echo what I said earlier to you. Thanks for inviting us on your channel. Like I said, I'm usually in bed at 7 o'clock on a Sunday. 6. I really do go to bed really early, so I have to get up at 4:30. So yeah, I enjoyed the stream. It was like I say, it's just one of those things, though, isn't it, DJ? You know, when you look at some of the news, and it's some news. Well, the LGBTQ and all whatever it's called, it's just there all the time, and sometimes it's just incessant. And it's one of them subjects. It's a little bit. I'm like yourself. I'm like Sensible. Like I imagine a lot of people in the chat. It's something. I don't know. I feel uncomfortable to talk about sometimes, but you have to talk about it in some respects to get it out. What's actually going on. So yeah, it's been funny streams. So some funny comments. So I've enjoyed it. And like I said, from off again at some point, especially on a Monday. I'd be more than happy to come back on the stream. I've not really to plug. I think if you want to follow me on Bonnie Lad News channel, and hopefully this Friday, all being well, that is, we'll be doing a stream with Ragnar, the Grim Up North news stream, similar to what you do tonight. And on Saturday, like I said, Sensible just alluded to it there. We haven't decided what we're doing Saturday, so hopefully we'll do it before then. Again, God bless DJ. Thanks for coming.
It was very remiss of me, as Emma G's just reminded us, because it's the end of the month, mate. It means that you and I are guests on 42's channel, so I can give you a good historical kicking over your 2 bites of the cherry, sir. So you'll enjoy that one.
Dickhead, like all that started because a comment I made was taken out of context. You fucking
no.
I'm not doing this. Like
2 bites of the cherry.
Aye. Right, sound. Fuck you. But yeah, as I say, it was a pleasure to have you on, Gudgies. Thanks to everybody in the chat. I was going to bring up the Steam for 42 because I've seen Emma's comment and I totally forgot about that. But yeah, I'll be on that. And then obviously next Sunday, I had an email of StreamYards telling me about I'm running out of minutes, because you only get a certain amount. So I don't know how many of us you got left, but all things considered, I'll probably be streaming. If not, we can always just flip it over on the Sensible channel if I've run out. But apart from that, with me being at work and that,
I am a bit picky about which guests I have on, though, mate.
All right, yeah,
I'll probably do next Sunday stream with Clive.
Anyway, on that note, though, speaking of Clive, it's a bit of a pity he couldn't go back on the night. But yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. Thanks again, everybody, and enjoy the outro. And yeah, well, there's Tsunami's. Well, he's there. Go check his channel out. I'll post the links after. Adios. All right, like, yeah.
Hate speech. Humza hates speech. He doesn't mind a fig or two, but Humza hates speech. At the party conference, we nippy at the helm. Blackfoot stuck in Westminster, the rest in lockdown hell. They had a buffet lunch with all those lovely things, but just before the salad bar, they heard poor Humza scream. Oh, Humza hates speech. Humza hates speech. He doesn't mind a fig or two, but Humza hates speech. Humza hates speech. Humza hates speech. He doesn't mind a fig or two, but Humza hates speech. You shouldn't even be here, they heard old Humza shout. You're just a furry nectarine, I think I'll throw you out. You come here in your millions, I wish you were the last. You're not allowed to stay here, cause we were never asked. Oh, Humza hates speech. Humza hates speech. He doesn't mind a fig or two, but Humza hates speech. Humza hates speech. Humza hates speech. He doesn't mind a fig or two, but Humza hates speech. You say I don't belong here, you nasty offy man. Most folks say that they like me, I know you're not a fan. Yes, I am a foreign fruit, that much is very true. But by your double standards, I'm just as soft as you. Oh, Humza hates speech. Humza hates speech. He doesn't mind a fig or two, but Humza hates speech. Humza hates speech. Humza hates Peach. He doesn't mind a fig or two, but Humza hates Peach. Humza hates Peach. Humza hates Peach. He doesn't mind a fig or two, but Humza hates Peach.
Look, I do not sound like groundskeeper Willie, right? I mean white. No, right. Oh, to hell with the lorries. White.